and good Monday to you all. Just want to say that during the storms, we were safe. We flooded a bit, but we're okay. Would like to send my heartfelt prayers out to all those who are affected in this in harm's way, and I hope everybody is getting well and has the help that they need. We'll keep praying about that. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in the beautiful state of Louisiana, from the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Roku, we're on Rumble, we are on YouTube, and we're on Facebook. We have a wonderful guest. He is somebody we've brought back a couple of times, and probably will have him a few more. I want to get going really quick, so Preston, I give it over to you.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you all for joining us on episode 75 of The Light Gate. I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host, of course, is Dolly Saffron. Subject of the book Symmetry. We're putting out a sequel. Got some amazing stories out of her. And we're going to be talking about some really interesting ET information directly from the ETs, science and their definitions of various concepts like dimensions. And, well, we'll get into it at some point. We'll give you a preview, I promise. But tonight, let's get to our show. I'm so excited about our guests. So I'm going to try to breeze through the hellos real quick, but I have to say hello to you guys because I love you all so much. It's because of you we do this show, and it's always so much fun to see this regular crowd and, of course, new viewers as well. And who do we got? First in line is Renee Cruz. Hi, Renee. Awesome to see you here. And Michael Kennedy. Oi, Helene. Yes.
Hug that girl of yours.
One big hurricane. Very intense. We have Jen Peak. Always nice to see you here. Excited for another episode of The Light Gate. Yay. We got Scuba Maru and we got Ruth Kleiber. Looking forward to hearing Michael tonight. Yes, our guest is Michael Schratt. Hi, Joseph. Yes, Mike's got some really interesting things to share with us tonight. We're excited. We've got Teresa Levine. We've got Louise from New Jersey. Greetings to all earthly beings. Who else do we got here? The Owl Man. And, Louise says, hello, Preston. Didn't forget you. Thank you, Louise. You guys make me smile. Dana Matthews. Hope you're doing well. Everything is going pretty good. Thank you. Hope you're well, too. We have Janice Connett and Karen Holton.
Hi, Karen.
Always a joy doing Karen Holton's podcast, Angels and Aliens. Check it out. It's awesome. We have Flubber Lane. Awesome. I've seen you here before. Let's see. CT Guitar Guy. 3 little ones live in Asheville and barely made it out alive. Oh, my gosh. Thank goodness. Those hurricanes. Judy Wilhelm, thank you for joining us. And Painting the Sky Kingdom. Someday I would like to hear what Dolly thinks about light symbols, not where people are speaking. You might have to elaborate on that. I'm really honestly not sure what light symbols are. Are you, Dolly?
I'm aware of what people think they are. Yes.
All right. I'm not sure I've heard that term. Okay, we have Namaste. Thank you, Namaste. Huge shout out to you and your wonderful gratitude. You're the awesome human. I think you're human.
We love you.
Superhuman, maybe.
Yes.
But yeah, we love you very much. Thank you so much. It means a lot. Every week you're here for us. Thank you. We got Dog Lego Lover. Yay. Yeah, we're doing well. How many inches of rain was it? 16?
One day, 14, and the other days leading up to it, it was about 12. So we got a lot.
It's crazy.
It was very wet. Yeah.
Okay, we got Ginny Mashbaum and John Schaefer's and Judy Wilhelm, and a wonderful donation of 20. Thank you, Judy. Very kind of you, very generous. Your goodwill and generosity is truly appreciated. Thank you. Christopher Harmon and Joseph A. So cool it's happening now live. So get your questions in early, guys, because Mike has a lot of information and I'm
Surprises, even, I was told. So it's going to be cool.
We got White Dragon and Chris MK. Happy to see Dolly feeling good.
Thank you.
Alaj and Becky Duncan and Derek Mulligan from Dublin. I've got quite a bit of Irish in me, so that's awesome. We got Olivia and Marla McMichael. Gosh, we got a nice big crowd today, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Oh, I blame you. I can see you there in the blue room. Star Orchid. Oh, we love you too. Thank you, Star Orchid. You guys are so generous, and we just love you guys. Thank you so much, Star Orchid. Each week, you guys just make me feel so humble and happy. Pam Harris. We got KM. New York City is a big fan of Preston. I love New York City too.
Awesome. Yep.
We got Ratzy and Bratzy. I'll start this question for you, and we will get to it. We got Jeffrey J. We got Simon Domville Musters, repeat guest who's coming back soon. Let me see. We got Central Wisconsin and Sunny Barrett and Miss Mary in the Wilder Side and KTM Adventures. And I better get started. Dana Matthews. Oh my gosh.
Love you, Dana.
You guys are being so wonderfully generous today. Thank you, Dana. You're awesome. Richard Minnick and Alexander Duncan. Namaskar. Zappa baby. What about any HPs who may be tuning in? They do know about all of us. They watch everything. We got the Outer Realm here. Michelle De Roche and Amelia Pisano at the Outer Realm airs live each Wednesday and Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Check it out. We owe Michelle everything. We love you, Michelle.
Yes, we do. Love you.
And Overlander BC and Bob Thompson, and I'm now officially in trouble. So
oh my, thank you, Bob.
Yes, thank you, Bob. I better get going. Hello, all the way from the UK. We've got Pogo Joe and George Kashumba from Australia and Leah. All right, I'm now officially in trouble, so I'm going to introduce our guest and get this show going because I know he has a ton of information. And of course, you can check out the show description for the links on our guest tonight, who is, of course, Michael Schratt. He is a superstar in this field. He's having a huge effect. He's found his niche, and it's amazing to see him all over the place these days. So it's really an honor and a delight to have him back on the Lightgate for a record 4th appearance. He is probably our single most popular guest.
Yes.
And I can see why, because his information is amazing. He's really one of the few researchers I truly respect. There's a few that I really like, but Michael's right at the top of the list. Let me tell you a little bit about him for those of you who are joining us for the first time or don't know Michael. He's a private pilot, a military aerospace historian, a longtime UFO researcher and lecturer, a draftsman, an expert on classified black projects. He knows a lot about that. But also UFO crash retrievals, the UFO government cover-up, and more. He is the author of Dark Files. It's a pictorial history of lost, forgotten, and obscure UFO encounters. It's an awesome book, you guys. He does forensic drawings in there that are so amazing. Really accurate presentations of people's encounters, which you often don't see because artists take a lot of leeway in presenting people's encounters, and they're just not accurate. His are. So check out his book, The Dark Files, 61 illustrated encounters from around the world, from boots on the ground research. He went to university archives, multiple UFO research centers, and private collections. He's a boots on the ground researcher. All contain references, so you can verify these. So what else do we got here? Tonight, Michael will be presenting some exciting new information about UFO crash retrieval events and our government's efforts to reverse engineer extraterrestrial craft and the UFO cover-up in some exciting new cases. Check out the links in the show description. Not now, after the show, because now we're going to bring Michael on live.
Hey, Michael.
Welcome back.
Good to
How
be
you
with
doing,
you. Good to be with you. Doing great to be with you. Preston and Dolly, it's great to be with you. And Preston, you're such a humble, kind-hearted person. It's an honor to be with you, sir.
Thank you very much, Michael. I feel the same way about you. Okay, let's see, just
Yep.
I don't know if Rumble's actually going. Darn it. One of these days, we'll get that to work. Well, at any rate, let's get this show on the road.
Mhm.
So, Michael, for people who haven't met you before, I already gave you a bio, but do you want to give any introduction that I didn't mention in your bio?
I think you pretty much covered it. Basically, I'm a concerned taxpayer, like we all should be. I want to know where my tax dollars have been disappearing the last 4 decades into these classified black budget programs that have no congressional oversight, no public scrutiny. We've heard a lot about these congressional hearings lately in Washington, D.C. Recently, the UAP disclosure legislation was axed for a second year in a row. So now it's been 80 years since we've tried this democratic process and it has failed us. So obviously, by default, what that means now, it's up to us now. It is up to all of us as a united coalition of researchers to come together as one voice to track down these legacy crash retrieval witnesses. This is going to be the vehicle that facilitates disclosure.
Very well said.
Yep.
That's why your work is so important, because there's just not enough people doing it. All right. Well, I know you've got a whole presentation set to go. Do you want to just dive right into it?
You can dive right into it.
All
That
right,
is right.
Okay, let's bring it up.
Bring
There
it
we
up.
go.
All right. So glad to be with both of you. And what this is a massive update to my retrievals of the third kind PowerPoint presentation. Now, originally, I essentially only had Rudy's drawings and some nice full color renderings. Well, I've added a lot more information, and I thought, yes, it does justify updating this. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to start right into this here. And we'll go to this first case here. So again, I'm going to provide you with the dates, the locations, the references of where I'm getting all this information. Now, this one is UFO crash retrieval 1942 at an Army base north of Georgia. Now, where I'm getting all this information, maybe I'm not sure if we can see this, but Leonard's book, UFO Crash Retrievals, the Complete Investigation Status Reports, that's where I'm getting this. This is page 319 in the book. And what it talks about is a flying saucer that came down. It hit the side of the building. It opened up a hull breach, which you see on the left side of Rudy's drawing here. It ripped that open. And what they discovered, again, this is page 319, is that this thing had 3 levels, 15 feet wide, 10 feet high. Upper level had what looked like a display panel with buttons and switches. That was level number 1. Level number 2 had what looked like a wraparound window. Sitting in back of that were 4 bar stools. That's level number 2. Level number 3 had an entryway hatch. Now, there were 4 crew members taken alive, 5 feet tall, 90 pounds, large black eyes, milky white skin. So in a nutshell, that's this case. This is long before Roswell here. So we're predating Roswell. Let's continue on. Now, I want to mention that wrapped around the outer circumference of the bottom of this craft were these hieroglyphic type markings and inscriptions. This is something that we've heard about so many times now. We have a case in Aztec that had writings on the inside wall of the upper dome, multiple other cases with this hieroglyphic writing. So my thought is, and certainly like to get both of your thoughts on this, it seems that there would be a transnational team of engineers and linguistic experts trying to decipher what these markings mean. It makes sense, right? There's got to be some type of coalition trying to figure out what all this means. They must have a huge, thick 3-ring binder with all these symbols that they've seen on these different crafts. So let's take Rudy's drawing as a guide. We'll hook in the 2-page report on this 42 crash retrieval, and we will go to the full color rendering just to give an idea of what this thing may have looked like if we could be back in here in 1942. Now, I want to claim that I never stated that I was an expert on AI image generation. You know, I'm learning this like everybody else here, but this is the best I could come up with based on the testimony of the actual witness here. All right, next one. Naval Air Station, Sunnyvale, California, 1950, at a place called Hangar 1, which still exists today. If you drive north on the freeway off to the right, you'll see this absolutely massive hangar. This is page 57 in Leonard's book, case B5. Couple things to mention. Number one, this hangar is so huge, it has its own weather inside. That's how big this hangar is. Number two, it used to be used to store blimps during World War II. So you can kind of get an idea of how big this thing is. Now, our witness was a radar operator. So he kind of goes through these double doors. And what does he see inside? Let's go to the next one here. A very large dish-shaped craft, about 100 feet in diameter. It had a low-rise dome on top, a series of porthole windows wrapped around the outer circumference. He was challenged by a guard and told to forget this thing and ordered out of here. Now, when he came home, he told his mother, quote, "It was certainly no aircraft of ours." This was his assessment after looking at this. So let's go to the full color rendering. And this just gives us an idea of what this craft may have looked like back in 1950 at Hangar 1. And we can kind of see how all these crafts start adding up, the bodies start adding up. Let's continue on here. Now, we've kind of heard of this before. Statement record and landmark, July 28th, 1952. This is the newspaper clipping. New appearance of flying saucers over Capitol is alarming. So this is that Capitol flyover that we've all heard of. It was tracked on radar. Multiple eyewitnesses saw this. The point being is that during the early 1980s, and Preston, you're very familiar with this, during the early 1950s, there was a call, and I'm going to go to the next slide here, a call from the Air Force to our pilots to shoot these things down. The Cincinnati Enquirer, July 29th, 1952, shoot saucers down, jet pilots so ordered in 24-hour alert. Let's go to the next one here. Jets keeping 24-hour alert for saucers. Pilots ordered to down objects if they don't land. On the saucer trail, pilots told shoot them down. Jets on 24-hour alert to shoot down saucers. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is the type of aircraft that was involved in these attempted intercepts, F-94 Starfire. And if you want to see one of these things up close, there's essentially probably only two places you can do it in the U.S. Number one, Pima Air and Space Museum in Tucson, Arizona, which has the rocket flaps in the closed position. Over on the right, in the Midwest, you've got Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, same model aircraft, but it has the rocket flaps in the retracted position, so you can see the launch tube. So this is the make and model that we're chasing after these flying saucers. I mean, this is like the exact one. All right, so we'll go to Rudy's drawing. Now, this happened multiple times over years. And you know that they absolutely have gun camera footage of all these attempted intercepts. Where is it? Where did it disappear? Why will they not declassify the gun camera footage? I mean, they always claim we don't have any evidence. We hear these congressional hearings, and when senators and congressmen get up there, they say, well, we don't have any physical evidence. What about all these pilots that chased after these things? We know they got it on gun camera. They said they did.
The FOIA requests get nowhere with this kind of stuff.
There you go. There you go. So here's Rudy's drawing. So what I wanted to do is do a best full color rendering based on this drawing. And this is what I kind of came up with, just to give you an idea of what this may look like during one of these intercepts. And this went on for years. In fact, it was so prevalent in the early 1950s.
There we go.
Frank Ficino wrote a whole book on this. It includes dates, references. We lost multiple aircraft. We lost multiple pilots. It's an established fact. This did go on. The United States Air Force doesn't want to talk about this, but we lost multiple aircraft and pilots on this. I mean, it happened. Where are all these pilots? What happened to the aircraft? Let's see the gun camera. What about the 8x10 black and white glossy photographs?
Hours and hours and hours of this footage.
Yes. Oh, yes. And you can trace this all the way back to World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and even today we're getting this stuff. So they've had multiple wars and conflicts where UFOs were sighted And they got this all on gun camera footage. This is an absolutely established fact here. Okay, let's continue on. Now, next one. Our witness is a former military officer. And this is page 212, 213 in Leonard's book. And he was a classified, he was given access to this materials library at an unknown U.S. Air Force base. So he's going through these file cabinets. He pulls open one of these file cabinets and he sees, interesting, there's a briefing report. There's a single black and white 8x10 glossy photograph depicting a 36-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that had a low-rise dome on the top. There was a series of porthole windows wrapped around the outer circumference. There was a pencil-size hole in one of these windows. So let's go to the next slide here. And this kind of gives you an idea of what this looks like. So we've got this testimony from this particular military personnel. Now, here's the couple of takeaways here within the report. Military officer had the correct security clearance, which gave him access to a classified materials library. Number 2, report seen by witness made reference to crashes and that bodies were recovered. 3, in addition to diamond tip drill bits and acetylene torches were used to gain access to the interior. Number 4, eventually technicians were able to gain access to the interior of the craft by way of a small entry hatch. The report said, referring to the door, that it was almost as if the material of the craft liquefied and then solidified again. So here's another one of these accounts where you had these absolutely minute, seamless sections where you can't even put a razor blade into this.
Yeah.
It's
Which so
almost
many
like
contactees say that too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard of these type things in your investigations, Preston, where the entryway hatches are so fully integrated that the seams, you can't even put a razor blade? Have you heard this?
There are no seams. They have a way of
There are no
actually,
seams. Yeah.
They're not there. This is not a normal door, right, Dolly?
Yes, correct. It depends on where they are, what mode they're in, and what's happened to the craft itself. That will cause you to be able to see anything, to even look at it like you could gain access to it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue on here. The Pentagon, 1952, at an off-limits room. This is a Pentagon office worker, page 152, case A1 in Leonard's book. So we've got our office worker. She actually goes down into the basement of the Pentagon. She kind of makes a left-hand turn. Now she's in this room that's kind of dark and dingy. It's poorly lit. It's got some cardboard boxes off to the side. She kind of makes a 90-degree turn. And what does she see? She sees a pickled alien in a large glass jar. And she's shocked beyond belief. She can't believe what she's seeing. Within a matter of 5 seconds, there's a military guard police grabbing her by her arm and telling her to get out of here immediately. She's not supposed to be here, but she did see
Too late. You saw it.
in a glass jar, probably had that formaldehyde preservation fluid. So we want to go to the next slide here. And this is what I came up with just to give an idea of what this woman faced when she saw the shock of her life inside this basement. Now, here's the question. Is there really a basement at the Pentagon where they could store something like this? Well, turns out no one less than our good friend Dick Cheney, former Vice President Dick Cheney, Secretary of Defense. New defense chief gets lost in the Pentagon basement. Peninsula Times Tribune, March 25th, 1989. So he was in the elevator. He went down. He thought he was going to get to his car. When the elevator doors opened up, he walked out. There was nothing there. He was in the basement. He kind of got lost. So yes, in point of fact, there is a basement at the Pentagon.
Dick Cheney is reportedly in the loop to all of this too.
Oh, absolutely in the loop. Absolutely in the loop. This guy knows a lot. He's probably not going to tell us, but we know for a fact that this gentleman, he knows quite a bit. All right, let's continue on here. Dutton, Montana, 1953. Cecil Tenney, he's a civilian. This is page 16, abstract 11 in the book. So he's driving down the road, and all of a sudden he looks up. He sees this 120-foot long cigar-shaped craft tipped up at a 45-degree angle. Preston, it is belching out smoke and flames coming out of the bottom of this thing. He said it was like, quote, having a very hard time keeping itself airborne, like it was struggling big time. All the smoke and fire belching
There
out
are
of it.
several accounts of this kind of thing.
Yes, there
It's not
is.
unique.
There is. Now, there was oncoming traffic that he said had its tailpipes caught on fire. So he drives another mile down the road, pulls off to the right. He goes into a bar. He files a report with the bar owner. As soon as he walks in the bar owner says, quote, "You smell like lightning." So he had been permeated in this ozone smell as he walked into the bar. And it was so prevalent that this guy said, "You smell like lightning." So there's a clue right there of what's going on here. All right, now he files the report. The guy leaves. He goes home. 5 minutes later, a police officer arrives at the exact same bar, files almost the exact report. And the bar owner says, this is very coincidental because a guy just came in here and filed the same report that you just told me. So next thing that happened is our primary eyewitness, he gets a call from the base commander that you see in Rudy's drawing on the upper right. And this guy says, "I want to see you." So he had to report to Great Falls Air Force Base the next morning, and he was grilled for 2 hours. He had to sign non-disclosure agreements. And then as he was being escorted out of this facility by, these two security guards, there were two men walking in the opposite direction. They tripped. They had these potato sacks over their and when this thing fell down, he said that inside, quote, "it looked like human body parts." I can't confirm it. He can't confirm it either. But to him, it looked like human body parts. I don't know if it was associated with the sighting he had the previous day. It could have been. He wasn't sure. But that's what's written in the report. So here's kind of my colorized version of this case here. And you can clearly see the smoke coming out, the fire. This has happened, as you mentioned, in multiple different locations. So it's not just an isolated incident here. Okay, now we want to talk about what these ETs look like. We've heard these reports from the Stringfield collection. Now, Leonard received reports from pathologists, medical doctors, people who were on autopsies at Walter Reed Medical Center. We have reports from laboratory X-ray technicians. All these people were feeding Leonard Stringfield details about the bodies, what they look like. So if we put this into bullet item form, this is what the medical personnel is telling us about this. The bodies are 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall, 2 round almond sunken in eyes without pupils, heavy brow ridge, large hairless head by human standards, no earlobes, no definitive nose, small slit for a mouth, very thin neck, small torso, wearing a metallic flexible garment. How many times have we heard about these ET bodies that are wearing this one-piece tight-fitting flight suit? Like multiple times we've heard this. Arms described as long and thin, reaching down to the knees. Hands having 4 fingers without thumbs, slight webbing. Short and thin legs, no toes. Skin color, beige, tan, brown, tan, pinkish gray. So this is, yes, everything that we've heard from the pathologist.
So somewhere there's a closet filled with these jumpsuits.
Of course.
No, they destroy them when they're done. They're made one time use only. Period.
Yeah, but they're in these. They've got some of these bodies with these.
No, well, they have a closet full of clothes, but not ET. Yeah. They're all new when you put them on. Yeah.
All right. So if we encapsulate everything in these bullet items and we commit it to a drawing, we go to Rudy's drawing, and this is based on all of the pathologist reports. We believe this is probably one of the most accurate depictions based on Leonard's research, page 46, 47. So if we take this as a guide and we go to a full color rendering, we're going to end up something like this is what is being recovered here. You wouldn't want to meet this thing on a Saturday afternoon in a dark alley anywhere, but this is per the description of the pathologist report. And, it encapsulates everything in the bullet items. It's got the oversized head. It's got the heavy brow ridge. It's got the oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose. You've got emaciated body parts, hands that go down below the knees, and we've got webbing between the fingers. So it's checking the boxes. It's checking the boxes. All right, so let's continue on to the next point here. Now, I want to give credit to June Crane. and the great work by Mr. Clarkson here. So she grew up in Dayton, Ohio, worked for the United States government between 1942 and 1952. She worked in classified laboratories. She had a Q clearance. She claims that she held ET debris at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Stated by 1952, the U.S. government had been involved in 3 UFO crash retrieval operations. Spoke to a pilot that stated that he flew in ET bodies and wreckage. So I ask everyone listening and watching today, does this woman look like someone that would be lying to us about any of this? I mean, she was definitely involved in the local library, a very intelligent woman. We want to honor her service. She's an American patriot. She's an American hero. This woman is not lying to us. When she said that she held debris, I believe her. Now, we want to highlight
for years and years too, isn't that right?
Yeah, she had held on to this for years. And then finally, she eventually talked to James Clarkson, who interviewed her. This is well after that he made the first introduction, and he wrote a whole book about this. And when you go through this book, it just impresses you that these military witnesses, they really don't have anything to gain. A lot of times they're on their deathbed or they're dying of cancer. You know, what can the government do to me once I'm in my grave? And they let all this out. And you could perhaps dismiss 1 or 2 of these witnesses. But when you have a united coalition of dozens and dozens of reputable first-hand military witnesses, people who loaded the craft on 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboy trucks and shipped them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, people who were involved in analyzing the tensile strength of the hardware recovered from these craft over at the Foreign Technology Division at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, people who held the bodies and were involved in the autopsies. These people are not lying to us. They are American patriots, and we want to honor their service. Okay, next. Source, retired Air Force pilot, late 1950s. Interview conducted by Ed Camarack Jr. Now, the original witness claims that sometime in the late 1950s, he saw a 6-minute film clip that depicted a 60-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It was in a hangar. It had a 10-foot gash on it. There were small ET bodies laying on the floor on stretchers with covers. So we want to go to the next slide. Let's see if we can blow up this and zoom in a little bit. Now, as this 6-minute film clip progressed, it shot to another screen and it showed these display panels with buttons and switches and iconology. It talks about there being star charts on these display screens. On the upper section here, we've got what could be the propulsion system. This may have suffered an internal implosion. So I wanted to see, let's see if we can do a full color rendering. And here's what I came up with the full color rendering. So there was definitely some type of implosion. Something happened on the interior where all this debris and shrapnel was coming out of this low-rise dome. So this is my best attempt here. Let's continue on. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1962, April, discovered a 15-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. This was seen by 5 transient 354th Tactical Air Command Fighter Wing pilots. Now, the leader of this transient team, he was responsible for their health and physical fitness. So they're taking a jog down the flight line at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and they're passing all the hangars. One of these hangars had its door opened up, and so they jog inside because they're looking for a racquetball court so that they can complete their racquetball court. They jog inside, and they see this 15-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It's roped off. It has security guards surrounding it with rifles, and this one guy comes up. I'm going to go to the full color rendering here. This is kind of what it looked like. This is by Joseph Wraith. And I want to talk about what this military guard told this transient pilot. It just rings true. It has the ring of truth to it here. He said, the guard challenged by saying, quote, "I don't think you're supposed to be here, sir." I replied to the affirmative, and we turned about face and departing, mumbling to ourselves that the good old U.S. had developed or had all along flying saucers in service. So here's another one of these reports where dish-shaped craft are being seen inside Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Sometimes they're off in the corner. They're They hide them within these different facilities. But we've got so many accounts now from credible military witnesses seeing these craft. Okay, that takes us to this slide. Braniff International Airways. We'll move forward here. Reference number 53, date 1963. PJ, he was a captain in the Navy. Later, he flew for Braniff International Airways. He encountered 2 flying saucers in a hangar at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, one was 30 feet in diameter, could hold 12 people. A second craft was seen that could hold 2 people. So now we've got another report from a reliable pilot. This guy flew for the Navy. I don't think these people are lying to us. So this one, it was date 1963. Okay. Also want to highlight Magic Eyes Only by Ryan Wood. Now, he published this book about 20 years ago. This is an update. Subheading Earth's Encounters with Extraterrestrial Technology. So I want to give credit to Ryan Wood for doing a great job. Now, in his book, he has documented 104 crash retrieval cases. If we hook up Leonard's publication that has 119 crash retrieval cases, we mix these two together, we're looking at well over 200 crash retrieval cases. Now, conservatively speaking, let's just knock out 50 just for the sake of argument. So now we're down to 150. The odds are in our favor. We can't lose. All we need is one to be correct. And the whole concept of UFO crash retrieval non-existence completely falls apart. The odds are in our favor. Okay, let's continue. First case within Ryan's book that I felt deserved to do some thorough analysis here. This is Santa Rosa, New Mexico, spring 1963. It's page 217 in Ryan's book. Our primary eyewitness was not a registered nurse. She was an X-ray technician. She was only 24 years old. Now, a call came from the dispatcher that there was a crash on the other side of town. So she piles in with the doctor into one of these 1963 Ford Galaxy ambulances, and they go across town. When they get there, she's shocked at what she sees. She sees 3 ET bodies, about 3.5 feet tall. They're lying on the ground. They're all deceased. Off to the right, there was some debris from a craft, some various debris. Where they pulled over, it was a little bit off the road, so they were kind of in some low shrubbery. Her first words out of her mouth was, quote, "Where are their parents?" That was her very first quote. Next thing that happened is they loaded up the ET bodies in the back of the ambulance. They drove this back to the hospital. I'm going to go to the next slide here. This is our full color rendering, just to give an idea of what this may have looked like back at the time of the actual retrieval operation. Now, an Air Force general showed up. They confiscated the bodies. They confiscated all of the records. They confiscated the undeveloped X-rays. Anything that was in the ambulance, they got all of it. As he was leaving, he told this X-ray technician, "Don't you ever say a word to anybody about this because the government has a long arm." Basically a direct quote. She was threatened. So this is another case that's talked about in Ryan's book here. Now, I want to take you to Cherry Creek, Nevada, summer 1964. This is page 243 in the book. Now, if you look here, there's not a lot going on here, Preston, in Cherry Creek, Nevada. There's not a lot of nightlife here. So don't expect any fantastic flashing lights or any concerts. Let's go to the next one here. Population in 2012, 72 people. Founded September 21st, 1872. So let's go on to the next slide here. What actually happened is there was a copper ore car that was coming around a bend with a mountain on the other side. All of a sudden, the copper ore car slams on the brakes. I mean, they go priority 1, full stop. What they see in front of them is nothing short of incredible. All of the train tracks are ripped up, mangled, and twisted. So they turn on the brakes. In the foreground, there were 3 female ranchers that saw all of this. Now, when they saw that the train stopped and put on its brakes, they skedaddled out of here. What they saw was a relatively large, probably about 40-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It had flipped over 180 degrees on its back. It had a low-rise dome. There was a hull breach on the side of the craft. On the bottom left-hand side of the craft, there were two ET bodies deceased, and then another set of tracks departing the area. So we believe there was a third one. Now, I'm just going to go over the bullet items here. The tracks were torn apart and quote-unquote thrown like pretzels. The Ely sheriff was alerted, who informed the Ely Armory to dispatch the local National Guard. The military ordered all the people on the train to board a truck and were driven back to Ely. Military examined the craft and found the bodies of at least 2 little pilots. So if we take this drawing from Rudy as a guide and we use Ryan's reference on this, we're going to go to the full color rendering. Here's what we came up with, just to give this an idea of what happened back in Nevada where all this went down. Now, let's go to another version here. This is by Evan, who did a nice rendering for me here. Off to the right, you can see that train tracks mangled, and then this thing augured in, flipped over 180 degrees, and now on its back, we've got the female ranchers here. So this encapsulates all of the bullet items that we want. Now, how this case ended, they actually brought in one of these absolutely large cranes on rails. So this was on train tracks. They brought in this huge crane on train tracks. And they here's what the craft looks like as it already kind of augured in. It ripped up all the tracks. And here they are lifting this craft up with the crane. They loaded this on 2 trucks and shipped it out of here. So that's how this case actually came to a conclusion.
Well, I just want to jump in real quick here. So these are obviously not reverse engineered if there's alien bodies, one. And second, I don't know if people know this, but Nevada is owned by the government. 87% of the land is government owned.
Yes, that's
so they
true.
can scoop these things up pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Okay, let's go to the next one. U.S. Air Force Museum, Dayton, Ohio, 1965, page 93 in Leonard's book, case A11. Now, I always debate whether I should include this case in here because it's so crazy, it's so outlandish, it's just so bizarre, but it's part of Leonard's publication. It's a reference, so I thought, yes, let's include it. Okay, so bottom line is, you've got a couple that visits the Air Museum. They're going through the hangars. They're looking at the V2 rocket display, okay? So let's go to the next slide. Here is the V2 rocket display, and this is the exact V2 rocket that they were looking at back in 1965. So you got the couple here, they're looking at this, they're admiring all this. All of a sudden, for some bizarre reason, the husband bails on his wife. Now he's walking through all the back corridors and hallways of the Air Force Museum. You know, he just leaves his wife stranded. Now she's with this German V2 rocket. He's walking through all these hallways. He busts through an off-limits room, and what does he see? He sees a small ET that's 3.5 feet tall, wearing a mercury aluminum polished spacesuit. He has a helmet on. He's pointing his index finger toward the primary eyewitness. Now, up to the left, you see our wife here. She's still standing by the V2 rocket while all this is going on. Within 10 seconds, all of the buttons and switches and dials and alarms and red alert lights go on inside the Air Force Museum, and all the personnel are ushering the public out of the museum. So we believe whatever this thing was, it had escaped from its underground containment facility at the Air Force Museum, probably connected by some underground tunnelway, and was literally wandering the back halls of the Air Force Museum. I know it sounds crazy, but it's in the Stringfield collection. So let's go to the rendering here. This is what I came up with based on the testimony of the primary eyewitness within Leonard's book. Not perfect, but it's the best I could come up with. All right, let's move on to the next slide.
Stringfield got a lot of flack for
absolutely.
He had got death threats. I mean, he was the guy that these people could trust. Absolutely. The only one.
Yeah. So back just as a backup here, in 1978, Leonard delivered his lecture, Retrievals of the Third Kind. He included at least 12 of these sources. Now, there was a lot of pushback, just like you mentioned, for a number of reasons. Number one, he was told that he could preserve an important part of our national history by telling these accounts from his military witnesses, but he absolutely could not release their names. And so this was a point of contention by people at the conference because there was no way to independently verify what was actually going on. Now that it's been so many years later, Leonard is gone. A lot of these witnesses are gone. What it means is, it means it's the final curtain call for crash retrievals. We have got to track down these remaining witnesses before it's too late and they all time out. That's what the government is hoping for, but we won't let that happen. So this is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1966. The primary witness was a civil service electrician, page 17 in the book, abstract 13. Now, this gentleman came home one night. His son was there, and he said, you know what? I got something I want to show you. So he reached in his breast pocket, pulled out a black and white 8x10 glossy photograph of a southwestern scene, which we believe to be Arizona. Could be Nevada, but we believe it was Arizona, or could be New Mexico. What it depicted was a white lab coat technician and then more of a military personnel in khakis holding up by the wrists a dead ET corpse. And someone took a snapshot of this and he showed his son. His son was shocked, could not believe this. So I'm going to go to the next slide. This is kind of my rendering to kind of make this come alive here, where he's showing his son this picture. Now, how this all ended, he went back to work the next morning and they discovered that the photograph was missing. He was fired on the spot, just like that. So, I mean, when you're dealing with this kind of evidence, because the way this game is played, they don't care what you know, they care what you can prove. Until you have physical evidence, you're not necessarily on the radar screen. But the second you get into this other category of actual physical hardware in the form of debris or like actually authenticated photographs, now you're in a completely different category. That's what this guy found himself in. And he got fired on the spot. So these guys don't play games. These are the varsity team. They know what they're doing here. All right, let's go to the next one. California City, summer 1971, page 233 in the book. Primary eyewitness is Debbie Clayton. Now, what they heard was a large boom. They walked outside about 3 blocks away. There was a lot of dust, so they start walking over there. And what they see is a acorn-shaped craft with a mushroom top, about 5 feet high, 10 feet wide. They're looking at all this. There are 4 people there. Primary eyewitness brother's friend brought a camera. He starts snapping photographs of all this. Within 5 minutes, a military convoy arrives. One of the military officers gets outside the vehicle, throws this camera to the ground, orders everyone to get out of the area. They did see a convoy of military vehicles. One of them had a flatbed with a crane. They hooked up a lanyard onto this metal hook. They put this thing onto the flatbed, covered it with a tarp, and we believe shipped it to Edwards Air Force Base, which is basically right down the road here. Here's my full color rendering just to kind of make this one come alive. So this is another interesting crash retrieval case. All right, next one. McClellan Air Force Base, California, 1973. Chris Coffey via pilot/astronaut Ellison Onizuka, page 153 in the book, case A3. So what you're seeing here is a photograph of McClellan Air Force Base. Now, our primary eyewitness went to a briefing room. I'm going to go to the next slide here. Here is test pilot Ellison Onizuka. So before he was an astronaut, he was a test pilot. He was told to go to a briefing room inside McClellan Air Force Base with a couple other pilots. So they're in this briefing room. There's a Air Force personnel at the back of the room with a film projector. The lights go down. This guy turns on the projector, and in the forward wall here, what they see is a very interesting movie clip that depicts 2 ET bodies on slabs during an autopsy. I mean, they absolutely can't believe this. Now, if you look to the left, Ellison Onizuka is looking back to us, and in the report, he recalled saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." So he was a firsthand witness to this. Now, I want to mention that this movie clip appears to have been shopped around to different Air Force bases around the country. And it's used as a trial or test balloon to gauge the reaction of our top military pilots. So the thinking is, if our top military pilots could not handle this reality, how much more so would the general public not handle this? This appears to be what they're doing here. They're trying this out on pilots. And this
now, did Ellison Onizuka, did he say this personally, or is it he told this to Chris Coffey?
He told this to Chris Coffey that he did see this. He did see this film. Now, I came up with the fact that because it's also mentioned in Stringfield publications that this has been seen in other Air Force bases. It's talked about in about three other places, military Air Force bases, where something very similar to this was shown to other pilots as well. So it wasn't just this one. They absolutely shopped this thing around. So it's very clear what they're doing is they're trying to acclimate pilots. They're trying to gauge their reaction. They want to know, could these people handle this? That's clearly what's going on here. Now,
they absolutely want to know if they'll shoot them down. That's what they wanted to know.
Yeah, well,
if
there you
have
go.
an enemy and it doesn't come anywhere close to being human to you, your ability to recognize it and fire at it is important. And that is a training technique by the military, period.
Okay.
Use it in a lot of capacities.
So let's go to the full color rendering that I came with, and you can see the projectors on. We've got the ET bodies here. Now, here's the interesting part. Leonard Stringfield made arrangements to interview astronaut Ellison Onizuka. Okay, this is all planned. They're all ready to go. They got the date all set. 2 weeks prior to the interview, I think you kind of know where this is going. Ellison Onizuka died in the Challenger explosion on January 28th, 1986. So we were this close of getting his testimony. Would have been great to get this from. Now, this guy is not lying. This guy is absolutely not lying. Now, I did some legwork. I tracked down his widow. I sent the widow the reference in Leonard's book. I also sent her the drawing that Rudy had made based on Leonard's description. I never got a reply. I never got a response. I know I got the right address. So I don't know if she doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know if Ellison ever told her about this, but that's where this case lies right now. Now, why would a Challenger astronaut lie to us about this? No way. Not a chance.
Well, that's certainly sheds a dark light on the whole Challenger disaster. I mean, that's conspiracy theorists will go wild on this one.
Well, they probably will, but the fact is this was planned. Leonard had it all set up. 2 weeks prior to this meeting, he died in the Challenger explosion. So that's how that went down. All right, next one. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1974, page 327 in the book. So you've got a new hire off to the left. She gave her 2 weeks notice. She's excited to start her new job at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and she's at a dinner party engagement. Coincidentally, her new boss is there as well. And over to the left, she's kind of talking with friends and everything, and the subject of UFOs come up. And so they're talking about UFOs, and her boss could tell that she was getting beaten up bad. Ridicule, condescending remarks, pointing fingers and laughing at this woman and everything. And so the boss turns to her and says, "Do you want to see the physical evidence?" And she says, "Now?" And he says, "Now." So he takes her in his car. They drive to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, he had the correct security clearance. They walk down this long corridor. There's a retinal scanner. He looks in this retinal scanner. He had a magnetic key code access. So he inserted the magnetic card into the access slot. Doors open up. They walk down another corridor where there's another retinal scanner. He looks inside, inserts his card one more time. Doors open up. Now they're inside an underground morgue at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And he opens up one of these drawers, and on this rolling platform is a dead ET corpse, half zippered up in a body bag. And she's looking right over this thing in complete, absolute shock. Her whole worldview is being shattered right before her. She absolutely can't believe this is actually going on. So let's go to the next slide, and you can see her facial expression here. She's completely shocked. Now, what happened next is She shows up to work 2 weeks later, all ready to go to work. The office manager tells her that her boss is deceased, and there's no mention of him dying in the local obituary. This guy disappeared off the radar screen. They probably unalived him for what he did, but this is how it went down. Now, when you read her testimony discussing this, you can tell it's heartfelt. This woman is not lying to us. This is legitimate. All right, let's go to the next one here. UFO crash retrieval in Italy, 1933. We've heard about this concept of something going on in Italy long before Roswell. In Leonard's book, there's a reference to two things. One, crash retrieval actually taking place. The Vatican has one dish-shaped craft recovered. There's also talk about something known as, quote unquote, the White Book, which is mankind's interaction with ETs over the last 2,000 years. These are the two things that are allegedly being stored at the Vatican. So let's go to the next slide here. I had Rudy do a drawing here. So what would be in the Vatican archives? Well, you've got the Pope there. You've got the dish-shaped craft recovered. That's up on the ceiling area. You would have gold coins that they've been collecting for thousands of years. You've had Maya and Incan treasure would be there. You'd have old books there. You'd have manuscripts. You'd have scrolls from the Library of Alexandria. You'd have an Egyptian sarcophagus. In the back, you'd have an Olmec's head. These are the things that you would expect to see at the Vatican. Now let's go to the full color version. And this is what I came up with just to give people an idea of what the Vatican has, what the Pope has been. He might have access to all this, but absolutely no doubt the Vatican is clued in on all this. Now, how do we know this? Because Newsweek, August 2nd, 2023, pressure on Vatican to reveal archives after UFO cover-up claims. It follows claims by David Grush, a U.S. Air Force veteran who previously worked at the National Reconnaissance Office on UFOs, in an interview in June that an unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, was recovered from Magenta, a town near Milan in 1933. Before becoming a U.S. possession with the help of the Papal State, Grush alleged that then Pope Pius XII had quote-unquote back-channeled knowledge of the UFO to the U.S., which ended up scooping it from them. Newsweek, August 2nd, 2023. So you can see the lineage of these retrieval operations go long prior to Roswell here. Let's do a little bit of...
Hold. Preston, station ID.
All right. I don't want to stop, but okay, let's do it real quick.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. You're watching The Light Gate, episode 75. I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. We're talking tonight with Michael Schratt, giving us new information on UFO crash retrievals and the UFO government cover-up. You are listening live on multiple platforms, including the United Paranormal Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana. And of course, we are on YouTube. We are on Roku. And I checked Rumble, and Rumble is streaming live as well. Let's get to this, Michael. This is amazing.
Okay, let's get back. Now, one thing I want to mention is we need more women in ufology, point blank. We don't have enough women in this field. We've got to get more women in this. Why is this a dominated man thing? There should be more women in this field. I want to give credit to Marina Popovich. She's no longer with us. Reference page 245 in Leonard's book, okay? Now, where she got the information is a Soviet Air Force colonel, engineer. Well, she is a engineer, a decorated test pilot. And I want to go to the next slide here. Let's go to the next slide. Major General Igor Maltsev, Commander-in-Chief of the Soviet Air Defense Troops. There's the reference of where this information came from. If we go to the drawing here, March 21st, 1990, near Moscow, two MiG-23 scrambled to intercept a 650-foot diameter flying saucer. 650 feet, that thing is massive. It would dwarf the MiG-23. We're talking about a massive craft here. So what backing do we have? I'm not going to read all this, but this is Miami Herald, July 8th, 1990. Soviets more serious about sightings. Let's do a blow up here. The general concluded the UFO had somehow come to terms with gravity and that it didn't seem to appear to be a terrestrial machine. Maltsev also reported that the fighter jets were scrambled and the pilots described a disk from 100 to 200 meters in diameter, flying at speeds 2 to 3 times faster than their aircraft. So here's the question. Who had the technology to build all this back at that time frame? And it is making a mockery of the MiGs that's trying to be chasing after it. So here's our full color rendering by Joseph Wright. This is the attempted intercept. Here's this thing flying away at a high rate of speed. No chance of an intercept whatsoever. Now, let's go on to the next case. U.S. Marine Corps diver off the coast of Okinawa, 1991. What they discovered was a 50-foot per side triangle at a depth of 1.5 miles. I'm going to repeat that. A depth of 1.5 miles. That's how deep this thing was. Now, what they discovered, this is Rudy's drawing, is this large craft about the size of an F-14. It was buried in the silt at the bottom of the ocean. Now, they brought down one of these DSRVs, deep sea reconnaissance vehicle, and they got a real good look at this thing. They discovered that the debris indicated that it was there between 40 and 50 years. There was hieroglyphic writing on the side of this thing. That's what's talked about in the report. I'm going to go to the full color rendering. This gives you an idea of what this thing actually looked like. So not only do we have craft being recovered on the ground, we've got multiple, which could be unidentified submerged objects being recovered as well. So this is a triangular shaped craft. Okay, now let's go to the next one. This is Jonathan Weygandt. I want to give credit to Dr. Stephen Greer for doing the very first interview with Jonathan, getting his DD-214 and vetting his background. Now, much later on 9/5/23, Martin Willis also interviewed Jonathan Weygandt. And if you listen to this interview, I mean, this guy's not lying to. In a nutshell, what he discovered, now this is what's talked about in the report. He's a Lance Corporal E3 Marine. He was in the Bolivian jungle, April 1997. He was with 2 other personnel in a Humvee. They go about half a mile into the jungle, and what did they discover? They discover an egg-shaped craft about 65 feet across. It's about 45 feet tall. It is buried and embedded into the granite cliff off to the left-hand side. Now, he said that there was a hull breach on the side of the craft that was spewing out this oily residue that had the appearance of a rainbow oil. There was also what looked like shark gills on the side of this thing. And then there was an indented section wrapped around the outer portion of the craft itself. There was an elliptical hull with what he appeared to be some type of an ET arm was hanging out the side of this thing, believe it or not. So this is April 1997. Let's go to the full color rendering by Joel Payne here. This gives you an idea of what this looks like. Now, this is another one of these military witnesses. They're not lying to us. They have no reason. They're not absolutely not gaining any kind of fame or fortune. They're telling this because they're American patriots here. Okay, now, want to take you to Steven Spielberg, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which I'm sure we've all seen this, right? We want to remember how this movie began, okay? Dolly or Preston, do you recall how this movie started?
Yes. The opening scene is a car going down the highway. Was it the car or was it? Yeah. Now I don't remember. Oh,
okay. Preston, anything, Preston?
Nope.
Okay, well,
I'll see it again.
let's go to the next slide here. The movie starts in an abandoned Mexican airfield.
Right.
A team of researchers discover 5 perfectly preserved TBM Avenger aircraft that went missing on December 5th, 1945. So that's how the movie begins, right? You've got this team there. There's a wind machine. They're all blown. Their hair is blown out. They see what is known as Flight 19, the missing Flight 19. You've got these TBMs. This is December 5th, 1945. That's how the movie starts. However, and this is talked about, Steven Spielberg talks about this himself. That's not how he wanted the movie to begin. The real beginning that he wanted is he didn't want these to be seen in an abandoned Mexican airfield. He wanted these aircraft to be discovered in the Amazon jungle with all this foliage and trees, and you might have a Olmec head over here. You might have an Aztec pyramid. That's how he wanted this to start. So here's Rudy's drawing that kind of shows you the beginning of what might have been the start of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So I thought, okay, let's try to do some kind of full color rendering here. This is what I came up with. Not perfect, but just gives you an idea of what this may have looked like in the beginning scene of Close Encounters of the Third Kind here. All right, let's continue on. Next case. This is 30 miles off the coast of Corpus Christi, Texas, on an offshore oil drilling platform. So here you see the star is the location of where all this went down. Okay, here's what we're looking at here. One of these absolutely huge drilling platforms. Now there's 500 people on this thing. In this case, there were at least 25. We're talking about these rough and tough blue collar oil workers here, not the kind of people that would be lying here. Multiple witnesses here. I'm going to go over the sighting details. Jeremy Clark is the primary eyewitness. There were 250 others. Date is December 1997. Location 30 miles off the coast of Corpus Christi, Texas. What they heard was this rumbling noise. They saw 25 military helicopters approaching from the west. The rumbling noise did not come from the helicopters. All of a sudden, the helicopters stop in midair, and this absolutely gigantic cigar-shaped craft hovers over the ocean. There's water dripping off the side of it. It has a concave section on the bottom of it. There's these indented 4 domes on the bottom surface of this craft. And the reference is Ben Field from the BUFOD website. That's the reference for this. So let's go to Rudy's drawing. This shows you what this thing looks like. And this thing is hovering above these helicopters. And these guys on the oil rig, they're watching all of this. And the water's dripping off the side of this thing. I'm going to go to the full color rendering. This gives you an idea of what this thing's look like. So we've got triangular shaped USOs. We've got dish shaped USOs. We've got cigar-shaped USOs that are twice as long as a football field emerging from the water. This is seen by multiple witnesses back in 1997. All right, let's go on to the next one.
Not that long ago either. So
not that long ago. No, it's absolutely not that long ago. I want to give credit to my friend, Mark McCandlish, who is no longer with us. He had told me this case years ago. It was never illustrated, but I want to give him credit here. What we're talking about here is Aerospace Alley. So if anyone is bored on a Sunday afternoon, you can do this in one day, and you want to visit all these military industrial contractor locations, you can do this in one day. What you'd want to do is start in San Diego, go up the 5 freeway. You'll eventually hook up with the 405. You go to Hawthorne where they have the Northrop facility. Then you're going to go onto the 14 North. You'll go into Air Force Plant 42. They have Plant 10, which is the Lockheed facility there. They also have a Northrop facility. Boeing has a facility there as well. And then you can end over at Mojave. This can be done in one day. Now let's go to the next slide. Los Angeles Times, September 6, 1983. Palmdale gets set for new boom cycle. So we're talking about the Reagan buildup. 81 to 86 was the Reagan military buildup. If you were a defense contractor and you had a new project you were working on, you literally got a blank check and you could do whatever you want to. That was the Reagan buildup. Let's go to the next slide here. Defense contractors at Plant 42, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing. Previous contractors were McDonnell Douglas and Rockwell International. So you got multiple companies here at this location. Air Force Plant 42, ground zero for the military industrial complex. Now, you as a taxpayer, you have every right to drive around this facility. Can't get inside, but you have every right, because you're a taxpayer, to drive around this facility. And I want to remind everyone that the United States Air Force does not own this facility. They are nothing more than a temporary custodian for this asset. We, as taxpayers, We own the facility, we own the aircraft, we own the buildings. We pay for all the people working with. We pay for their payroll. We own the runway. We own all of it. So it's our job. It is our obligation to challenge what's going on here, because we want to know an accounting of where our tax dollars are disappearing here. All right, so Air Force Plant 42. Here's the top view looking down. You can see on the upper right, Plant 42. And let's go to Lockheed Plant 10, which I got from the Palmdale Library. We're going to zoom in here, and you can see here, look at this building. You've got building 601, this big building on the left-hand side here, and then you've got the freeway and the railroad tracks going right by this thing. You can drive right back past building 601. Here's the blow-up of 601. Now, why is any of this important? Because according to Mark McCandlish, he interviewed an engineer back in 1992 that was taking a smoke break at night. Coincidentally, that evening, there was smog in the localized area, so it backlit all of the Plant 42. And what this guy said is, on the far side of this hangar, something unbelievable happened. I'm going to go to the next one here. This is what it looks like inside this hangar. It used to be the L1011 hangar, so we're talking about the same hangar here. What he described is the hangar doors opening up, and all these boom lifts come out as a group. They extend their arms. On the top of the boom lift, there's a tarp connected. And so there's like a little bit of a droop, and then it connects to the next part of the boom lift. There's another tarp, and then another tarp, and it forms this 360-degree perimeter screen. There's a guy who shines a flashlight, green flashlight 3 times, and all of a sudden, this 120-foot diameter black contact lens hovers and then goes right into the center of all these screens. And then the whole thing trundles back into the hangar. Hangar doors close. He's watching all this. So let's go to Rudy's drawing that shows you what this actually looks like here. So what I'm saying here is they have got the technology. They absolutely have the technology. Now, 2 weeks later, the primary source, his persistence was paid off because he saw the entire operation happen in reverse. The hangar doors open up, all these boom lifts come out, they extend their arms, they stretch out these perimeter tarps, a black contact lens hovers out of this thing and departs like a spark on a grinding wheel and makes no sonic boom back in 1992. They've got the technology. It's a done deal. It's confirmed. So
this cover-up is on 2 levels then. I mean, we have
absolutely.
the ET tech and we have the reverse engineered human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's been going on. This is what's talked about in the congressional hearings by David Grush, where he quote unquote said that we had an ongoing crash retrieval program directly in congressional hearings. Okay, so let's take this as a guide. We'll go to the full color rendering. And this is what I came up with for this Plant 10 facility. I mean, this is absolutely going on. All right, let's go to the next one. USS Nimitz, 1991. This is prior to the 96 event. This is years prior to. Same aircraft carrier. Our primary eyewitness is Kevin Thomas, U.S. Navy combat photographer. Now, all of a sudden, the aircraft carrier goes to what they call darkened ship. When they go to darkened ship, they turn off all interior lights, all exterior lights, and you are not supposed to be caught outside. When it goes to darkened ship, you go inside. You're not supposed to be caught outside. However, the hatch was closed when he tried to get inside, and he was caught outside the aircraft carrier. And what he discovered, I'm going to go to the next slide here, is this absolutely massive black triangle emerges from the ocean right next to the starboard side of the aircraft carrier. It's hovering over the aircraft carrier. He's watching all this. This thing, he said, was larger than the Nimitz. So the Nimitz is at 1,092 feet in length, and this thing was larger. So we're looking at something like 1,200 feet in length, hovering above the aircraft carrier and then departs. And so this was seen by this primary eyewitness here. So what I wanted to do for you, Preston and Dolly, is just give you a brief update of the current state of the crash retrieval investigation here. it's important that we preserve this history so that these remaining witnesses come together as a united coalition that could eventually lead to these open congressional hearings where we can finally get this released into the public domain.
That is awesome. I hope it happens. I really, really do, because the people in this country need to know that they have back engineered. They're not as, they don't have the same technical abilities as ET craft, but it's, you wouldn't think so when you saw it. Okay. You would believe that it's the real deal. This is trillions of dollars worth of back engineered technology.
Absolutely.
Reverse engineered.
Absolutely.
Trillions of dollars. And it's not a joke, and it's for real. And everybody needs to write their congressman, and everybody needs to write their president, call the White House even, and say, look, we're tired of paying taxes for you people to rape us of our money and come up with things that we don't know what you're doing. Then what are you doing it for? You know,
right.
Because mostly the military only back engineers for weaponry and things like that, you know, national threats. And if we've got that going on, they could use it on anybody. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Absolutely.
Anybody.
Absolutely.
We need to wake up. We all need to, as one voice in this country and all around the world, need to start making phone calls and writing letters and telling each other in the streets. It's time to tell the truth. Period. And we're not going to give you any more tax money until you do. Or our children aren't going to join the military anymore. We're going to take away your muscle, and we're going to down you this way, you know?
Yeah, it's equally fascinating and infuriating, I have to say.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm really not quite sure how to feel about all this. But yeah, it's, oh my God, because what I keeps coming to mind is, you know, you've presented all these cases, which are, right. You know, one or two would be one thing. 3 or 4, it's quite enough. Not, I mean, there's hundreds. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is what we know about.
Yes. And Michael, you make good points about certain things. Our technology has always been really, really good. I mean, we're pretty smart people worldwide. And gun cameras are not the puny things that they show you on the screen. Most aircraft have no less than 6 or 7 cameras on them. And the 2 principal cameras, forward facing and back, are better than 3D, in full color, HD, you name it. They can see every aspect of what they're looking at, all of it. And it's not just that. We're walking around, you know, I can remember being in school and I think I was in the 3rd grade, and they walked in the door with a laser. And I'm like, wow, look, what? And because I kind of had an idea what they were, but never saw one in real life up until then. I'm just a little kid. And they're looking around the room at us, like marking who wants to really get into this. I went to schools that propagated that kind of interest in that kind of technology, so that these kids walked in and then they disappeared. You never saw them again. I can name 3, but I won't here. It is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. So we're being recruited, we're being compartmentalized, we're being lied to at the same time, and we're breaking our backs to give them the money to do this with no authority whatsoever. It's got to stop.
Correct.
So can I pop up a question? This is a good one from CT Guitar Guy 85. I have a question for Michael. Is he seeing any notable sightings or crash retrievals that are current from the last year?
Let's see. Well, we covered the one in 1997. I've got another case in 1991 during the Bush senior administration. Beyond that, I don't have any specific details beyond that. It's definitely ongoing, but I don't have certainly nothing from Stringfield, because he died in 94. So that's where his investigation concluded.
Now, we recently talked with Stephen Bassett. Okay. Or I did on Michelle Desrochers' show, The Outer Realm. I'm wondering what, you know, he's very confident in that disclosure is going to happen. I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Well, I'm somewhat skeptical. I've taken a more of a skeptical approach to it, because remember, what advantage would there be for the defense contractors and the deeply entrenched intelligence community to make this available? You're talking about thousands of lawsuits would be going on. People were murdered over this. You've got all the people who had to sign extra constitutional non-disclosure agreements involve unacknowledged special access programs that
Right.
bypass the Constitution. So all of these things are extra constitutional. Dr. Greer talks about that. So the second this goes down, there's going to be lawyers, there's going to be lawsuits. I don't see an advantage. Plus, you've got all the utilities. If they release the technology and the propulsion systems associated with these vehicles, they would doom the trillion-dollar utilities. So you've got the internal combustion engines would go out of business. You've got the coal fire plants that would go out of business. You've got the nuclear power plants that would go out of business. You've got the wind farms. You've got the solar farms. Multi-trillion-dollar industry, obsolete overnight. So there's no advantage for them to come forward.
All right, we're getting some great questions. This is a good one from Alfred Miller. Question for Michael: do you sell prints of your work?
Sure. But we've already paid for this stuff. Why would we want to pay twice? Because we already paid for it. So we should be getting the 8x10 black and glossy white. That's what we should be getting, right? We already paid for it.
The real deal. That's right.
All right. Here is a question from Penny Rummel. What are your plans to do with this information? Who have you shared this information with?
I've shared it with everybody that I can possibly share it with. I mean, I've tried to do PowerPoint presentations all around the country. I want to get the word out, not because I want to be famous. I just think that all of us should be considered
the truth. No dying stupid.
We all deserve this. Yeah. What I'm going to do with it is I'm going to keep on investigating more crash retrieval cases, get more drawings done, get more full color renderings done, and hopefully get to the remaining witnesses that Leonard had originally contacted so that we can get to their bosses that will bring us to the bodies and the craft. That's the goal.
All right. I don't know if you can answer this case or this question from Rodrigo Vieira. Is Michael going to present the Azores case?
I'm not familiar with that case.
Yeah, we'll have to, if you can elaborate, Rodrigo. Maybe we can get some more information on that. Here's a question from Terrence Wells. I like this question. For Michael, what are some cases you're currently working on, and which one is the most interesting of all?
Okay, great. Okay, number one, what am I currently working on? Well, I want to give credit to Ryan Wood. Robert Wood recently passed away. His son, Ryan Wood, we spent 3 days, 12-hour days scanning in all of his material. That's been included into Ryan's UFO decks. So if anyone wants to get their UFO question answered, you go to ufodex.com. You can type in your question, and then AI will sift through about 300,000 documents, 400 books, 1.2 million pages of documents, and it will extrapolate the data and give you an answer. So what I've been working on is the Bill Tompkins case. I feel that this guy needs a second hearing. He needs a second chance. I think his information is valid. So that's something I'm working on. Next, the other part of the question is my favorite case within the Stringfield collection is by far the 1963 case of a Marine who guarded a 40-foot diameter dish-shaped craft at an unknown location back in December 1963. So this thing was about 15 feet tall, 40 feet in diameter. It had a series of opaque, elliptically shaped windows wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft itself. It was propped up on scaffolding. He guarded it for 2 weeks. There was a white circle on the floor. His job was to shoot to kill anyone who would breach that. So I tracked down the gentleman who interviewed him back in 1986. I got all his private notes. I've got original sketches from the Marines. I did a full rendering on all of that. So that's my favorite case.
Okay. That's very cool.
All right. Here's a question from Activate Mission to the same timeline. Has Michael been contacted by any insiders or witnesses?
I've talked to people within the defense industry, aerospace contractors. Obviously, they can't tell you too much, but I was successful in securing pretty much most of things that were done by Bill Scott. Now, Bill Scott is the former retired Rocky Mountain editor of Aviation Week and Space Technology. He had been chasing these stories for almost 20 years. He retired back in 2006, was given access to his material. There's a tremendous amount of information on there. defense contractors, what they were working on, things that are kind of beyond the horizon here. So that's a good resource that I was able to get access to.
Yeah, I personally did interview a whistleblower who was in the hospital on his deathbed.
Yeah.
Found me, and he was a subcontractor for Edwards Air Force Base.
Okay.
Walking with his employer past
Yeah.
a hangar when he heard a humming noise.
Okay.
Very large window was opened,
Yeah.
and there was a sports car-sized silver craft hovering
right.
about a foot off the ground. Not a mark on it. It was a lozenge shape, a perfect capsule.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "What's that?" And his employer quickly put his finger to his lips, wouldn't say a word, turned a little pale, and kept walking. So he bugged him several times. Finally said, "Never ask me. You will never know. You weren't supposed to see that. Shut up."
Mm-hmm.
A year or two goes by, and this same employer calls him up and says, "I need you. I need you now. You're the only one who can do this." And the guy I interviewed says, "I'm not doing it. I'll tell you what. I'll do it under one condition. You tell me what we saw." And his employer said, "No, I can't do that." He said, "Well, I'm not going to work for you." And so they got into what he said, a pissing argument over a couple of beers. And the guy said, "Okay, I will tell you, but you got to promise to never tell anybody." And he didn't until he was about to die. He's dead now, obviously. And what his employer said is, "This is all I'm going to tell you. That was not an ET craft. That was an ET craft, or that was a reverse engineered craft using ET technology, which is based on the concept of counter-rotating magnets, which creates a magnetic field on the outside of the craft, which propels the craft in the desired direction."
Okay.
That was it.
Now, that's written about in your book, correct, Preston? That case is written about in your book,
My book,
and it
Wonder
was seen in a glass rectangular laboratory, right?
It was in a hangar.
Okay.
It was in a hangar, and it was a metallic, shiny chrome looking craft.
Okay. Now, there were white lab coat technicians that had like electronic monitoring equipment with cables plugged into it, right? And it was hovering off the floor.
Yeah.
I don't know
That's how the guy describes it, right? In the book.
Yeah, I read it too. It did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yep. We did a drawing of that. I think you have that drawing. Hopefully you have that drawing. If not, I'll send it to you. Mm-hmm.
It just makes me wonder how many other cases there are out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep saying that, but it's infuriating to think that, with hundreds of these things, that means, we know there's one at Norton because that's been implicated.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Wright-Patterson, Area 51, Edwards Air Force Base, a number of Air Force bases across the United States, and certainly the world.
Correct.
So is it your understanding that the, quote, superpowers are cooperating with all of this?
What I like to do is I like to look at the newspaper clippings. What are the newspaper clippings telling us? Well, if you look in the mid-1950s, it is very clear that, number one, they were desperately trying to break the gravity barrier. That's the first thing. They employed multiple defense contractors. So Sperry Rand Corporation was involved. Martin Aircraft Company was involved. Lear Siegler Corporation was involved. William Lear was involved. John Lear's father, he was involved. It also talks about how universities are trying to crack the gravity barrier. And according to Dr. Greer, which I will concur with, October 1954 is when they made the breakthrough. That checks out with the newspaper clippings.
I want to tell you something you don't know.
Yes.
Also, France, all over France as well. And I can prove that. I have information about that I found. Okay. And there's reasons why, but I'll tell you offline.
Sure.
But
sure.
yeah.
Which
French were
speaks to the 1954 French UFO wave, which was unprecedented, with hundreds of, well, literally thousands of cases over a period of October, November 1954, at a level that's never been seen before or since.
Mm-hmm.
Right around that time.
You were talking, Preston, about that humming noise that you mentioned. That's exactly what the witnesses describe on the Belgium Triangle in 1989-1990, where there was this low frequency electrical humming noise like a sewing machine or an electrical transformer. That's what's described on this thing. And then we've got CE2 effects where you've got static on the radio, you've got car engines stalling out because they're in this localized static electrical field. it's pointing toward a man-made technology.
Exactly, because ET doesn't do it that way at all.
All right. So here's
Not
here's a question from Susan Johnson,
Okay.
which is, well, to Dolly and to you, Michael. How do we organize to get the petition to the government? Should we use Bill Burns? I guess she's asking. Bill Burns is a UFO researcher. But yeah, how can we organize to sign a petition to the nation and have televised hearings to stop the secrecy and the murders? How do we petition the government? How do we do this?
Well, it was the assessment of Gordon Cooper, Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper, that the only way this is ever going to come out is if this technology is handed over to the scientific coalition, the scientific community, and then they bring it forward. Because we got to get independently verified all of this information. We can't trust the government. We really can't trust the defense contractors. It has to be done by a united coalition of independent scientists, and then they come forward. That's what Gordon Cooper had said. And it's a good assessment too.
McDonald Dan, Dolly, why the secrecy on your part? Why can't you tell us what you're going to tell Michael? Are you bound to?
Because there are just some things you don't discuss publicly before the person you want to tell it to hears it first. That's
right.
important, you know?
Okay, there's some good questions here. I just want to put here, this one up is not so much a question, but a good point. There's a long and mysterious list of free energy inventors coming up dead. Be careful. Which is true.
That is absolutely true. But again, remember, they don't care what you know. They care what you can prove. But yes, you have to be careful.
I want you to consider something now. I know what Cooper said, but you also have to understand that a lot of scientists nowadays, independent even, are paid off by the governments. They've infiltrated.
You're right.
And you got to be careful who's talking about what, because you could be walking into a minefield of trouble. You know, it is. That's why I keep saying it's everybody who's within the sound of our voices. Tell your friends, tell your family, start writing letters to the Pentagon, to the president, give him a call. Say, we have sons and daughters who are about to join the Army. We're not going to keep supplying you people with help until you stop this and you come clean with us. Parents have a lot more control over their children than they think. And we have to stop giving them the fodder to do what they do with us. Quit working toward them. Make sure that the laws change so that our tax dollars don't get raped and pillaged from our coffers. We have to stop giving our children over to their militaries who get used, badly used, and are part of the problem. We have to stop. It's called, tell them to lay it down, period. If you want the truth, get the truth.
One thing I want to mention is that during the Clinton administration, we were spending $100 million a day on black programs. $100 million. You take a week of that. What could you do with schools? What could you do with the infrastructure, helping people? Just a week.
Oh, I know.
Make a difference.
Oh, I know. Our lives would be a heck of a lot different than they are now. You know.
Yep. That's right.
Okay, I've got some more questions here. This is from Moonfire, who's had personal experiences. Not sure you can answer this, but it's a good point. Why does Wright-Patterson fire Air Force members and force them to psych wards for having UFO experiences? Hers happened in the 1980s. Do you have any information that they're still doing this to people?
Not any direct information on that, but we can go back to the first tragedy. Naval instructor. I forget his name right now, but he was the first casualty of the cover-up. You know who I'm talking about, Preston?
Forrestal?
Forrestal, James Forrestal. Yeah. We need to do a deep dive into what actually happened to James Forrestal. Why did he have a mental breakdown? And why was he trying to throw himself not outside the window, but on the way to Bethesda? He was trying to throw himself out of the car on the way over there. Was this just due to the stress of his job, or was he briefed on something that he just couldn't handle?
He didn't want the torture they were about to hand out to him to get information from him or to reorganize how he thinks to shut him up. That's what that was about.
All right. Here is a question. Well, it's more a comment from John Mo Marshall. Dolly, this must make you sad to see these dead ETs.
That's a hard thing for me to discuss, but I'll tell you something. A lot of the ETs that we're talking about are AI, and I'm not sad about it. They're sentient beings like we are. They're just AI, So that I don't have a problem with. It's the others that I do. And there are a couple out there that I know of right now that I wish I could go get, and I can't. And that pisses me more than you have any information about how I feel about this. It's not good.
No. I feel sorry for all the people who are under NDAs and who really have all this information and are just too afraid to talk. I mean, we spoke with Don Schmidt regarding his research into Roswell, and he's talked to people who are just shaking in their boots all these years later. I mean, what is it now? Like you said, Michael, 70, 80 years this cover-up has been going on. It's absurd.
Yeah, you got to know why, and yet you'll understand everything if you just sit and think about it for a little while. We're on a timeline here, and the government knows it, and they're building up for their own defense for their reasons, and they're paranoid, they're crazy, they're doing things they shouldn't be doing, and they really don't care about anybody else but themselves. That's, if you sit and think about what's going on, what's the purpose of all this? What's the aim here? Where are you going with this? And we're not a threat to them. Ask yourself who they might think is a threat to them, and ask yourself why a false flag. Because I guarantee you right now, Michael, I'm going to challenge you. Anything that you hear now about a crash retrieval is their stuff, not ET. They're not here.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah.
And they're getting ready to false flag everybody. That's why it was so important for them to build the craft that they have built and make them workable for their ends and their means.
I like where you're going with this. That's ringing true. Yes, that's ringing true.
All right. So Alfred Miller is saying free energy is most likely the reason for alien technology secrecy. What do you think?
That's one of the reasons. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
No
Greed, power, controlling the narrative. They've painted themselves.
Making sure the slaves do the work. That's how.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
So if we have this technology, Jeff McLeod asks, why don't we actually use it for something? It's been 70 years.
Because when you are trying to win a war, you win the war by controlling the high ground. They call it the high ground. So if you control the high ground, you control the war, any war. And they are not going to roll out the silver bullets, the trump card technology, the aces in the hole for something like a war or to get Osama bin Laden or Saddam Hussein. This is a completely different ballgame altogether. They're not going to roll out this for something like a war. That's just not how they do it. This is for something completely different.
Yep.
So where do you see the future of disclosure next year or so? What do you think is going to happen? I know I'm asking you to speculate.
Disclosure next year? I would be very skeptical about any government disclosure because it's going to follow their narrative.
Would you like to hear what my contact has to say about it?
Sure. Yeah.
He quoted it to me, made me write it down. You ready?
Yep.
Disclosure from those in authority over humanity will always tactically use plausible deniability. Their agenda supersedes all humanity. Our reality is their construct. It is their power and its weaponization which impugns all explanation to humanity. Therefore, learn all that you need to know. Learn it all. Understand each of us must use our abilities to discern our positions in this paradigm. Wisdom is your best friend. In other words, what I'm telling you is true. We need to wake up. That's what ET keeps telling everybody who has contact. Tell them to wake up. Tell them to get real about this, because we're in a situation where it's them and us. And we have to wake up to what's really going on around us. We've been forced into losing information, not having the knowledge we need, knowledge base to have real wisdom and understanding for what's really going on. And we're treated like the mafia treats everything. It's like a giant worldwide mafia going on. We need to stop. Get off this train.
I thought that was well worded, Dolly. That was well worded. That was
his words, not mine. Word for word.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't take any credit for that. He's a smart guy. Yeah.
I'm so glad we get to field some questions and because there's some good ones coming in here. I can't keep up with all of them. But here's one from CT Guitar Guy 85. I'm not sure if you can answer this, Michael. Question: is it true that most of the illegal money spent on UFOs goes towards the security rather than the scientific study of them?
Okay, well, that's partially true, but we also know, and here's where it starts to get sinister, right? How are they paying for all this? Where is the money coming from? Well, he talks about the security. That is true. A chunk of it is paid for. It absorbs by the security aspect. But the other ways that they pay for this is by illegal weapons, illegal drugs, and trafficking. So it starts getting real black, real deep, real dark. And that's why how are we going to have disclosure when this stuff is so incipient and it has infected the republic of this whole country here with all of this back channel going on, all these dirty deals going on? You can see that they don't want this to come forward. When you've got trafficking, you've got illegal drugs, which is absolutely more profitable than the oil cartels. Now you're dealing with, this is big time stuff here. This is not going to be let loose easily.
Yeah, well, I want to speak to that real quick, because when I was a young man just starting out doing UFO research, my dad talked to somebody who knew somebody. So this is a hearsay story, right? But my dad's friend knew someone who came up to him and said, everything I've told you is a lie. I don't work in Nevada. They fly me up to Alaska and they fly me back each weekend. And he said he worked in an underground base that goes 7 stories down, where they study 3 main things: biological warfare, sensing devices that see right through walls and ceilings, and reverse engineered craft. And he said, how they fund it. Get this, is what you said, but it's more detail. He said, what they do is they will bust drug runners, take the drugs from them, sell them, and then go bust those people. So they're taking these drugs and just using them over and over again to make money from them over and over and over again.
The cartels are so militant and have fortresses and stuff like that. Are you kidding me?
Double dipping. They're double dipping is what they're doing.
Yeah. So unfair and really just unethical on so many levels.
You know what that reminds me of? Boss Hogg and Dukes of Hazzard. That's something that Boss Hogg did.
Yeah. That's funny. That is absolutely funny. Oh my God. I don't know.
Let me see. Do I have any good other questions?
Well, I mean, when you get into this, doesn't it appear that disclosure is less and less likely when you hear about stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, I grew up knowing all this stuff, and I watched it happening in front of me. And my father absolutely convinced me to watch my back for the rest of my life, because there was nothing he could do about what was going on. Nothing. He was totally convinced. And I saw the frustration in him. I know about certain things. It's like, oh my God. And he said, shut your mouth. Don't talk about it to people. You've got your own thing that you're doing. Deal with that. And that's what I've promised to do. But it kind of meshes together. You can't, it's like a spider's web. It's everywhere in everything. You can't help but get stuck in different parts of this. It's horrifying. It really is.
So the black budget, is this on the books? Is there a paper trail? Is there any oversight at all for all this money?
There is a legal black budget that you could kind of say follows the checks and balances, because you've got the House and Armed Services Committee chairmans are clued in to the legal black budget, talking about things like the F-117, the B-2 stealth bomber. These are kind of black programs that have become declassified now in the white world. Now, but there's a second set of programs, which, Dolly, what you're talking about, that don't have any congressional oversight. There's no checks and balances. You've got illegal drugs, you've got illegal weapons, you've got trafficking. That is completely not a part of the legal black budget whatsoever.
And it's an unending pot of funding.
Yes. True.
Okay, let me see. Here's a question that's come up a couple of times from Wyatt Bronx. Sorry, Wyatt, this one slipped by me. Preston and Michael, have you heard that the James Webb's telescope detected something heading our way? I have not. I mean, I've heard rumors, but I haven't found any good reporting on it.
I have heard about it, but I don't think it comes from reputable sources. I don't
Right.
put any stock in it whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
Put
what do you
that
think?
under the false flag, false information, misinformation.
Correct.
Yeah. So you would agree that there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation.
Yes.
I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but it's just so obviously true.
Correct.
Right.
So let's see. Do you have? I'm still searching for some questions here.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you can jump in there, say.
Wait, I'll give you a scientific reason right off the top of my head why that's not true, okay? You've heard me talk about how they travel and how they light gate to places and they travel interdimensionally. They would not fly in conventional space for any length of time whatsoever. They'd be dead if
Correct.
they tried.
Correct.
So don't even go there with that. It's not true. Okay.
Mhm.
So someone mentioned Lou Elizondo. Have you read his book?
I have his book. I have not completed it.
All right. I have not read it, so I can't really comment on it. But I have to give kudos to anyone who enters this field. But anyone who's coming out of intelligence, I'm wary. But I mean, let's face it, whistleblowers, if they, do come from the intelligence sector.
Takes a lot of guts. You got to ask yourself which way are they flying with that anyway? Because some of them come out because they were told to. It's planned, It's a ruse. And then some come out and they're not talking to the public. They're talking to people behind the scenes, and you'll never hear from them anyway. But they're putting information out there that everybody needs to be wary of and hoping that it goes the right way. So just be careful what you hear and what you think.
All right. Well, we are down to our last 5 minutes here.
Okay, that's fine.
I want to have you back on the show, Michael, because I still have this whole list of drawings of unusual cases that you put in your book. I'd love to just go through the whole dark files.
Sure, we can always go through that. No
Because
problem.
that's still really interesting.
No problem.
I mean, I had them all set up here ready in case we.
Oh yeah.
We
Well,
never
we
run
got
out of-
enough for the next ice age, so it's no problem.
Yeah. Also want to, I know I haven't done it yet, but I want to get together with you and give you a working look-see drawing of Talata and let you do
Oh,
that.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Okay. Put you on that because
Mhm.
he's a unique craft.
Okay.
All right, so any last information you want to present with our viewers before we have to say goodnight?
I think we covered it all well, but certainly glad to be with both of you. It's always fun because you know what? We're a family here. We're good
Yes, we
friends,
are.
so it works out
Absolutely.
really well. Yep. hmm
Yep.
All right.
And we'll definitely plan the next episode. Okay.
Sure.
I'm going to start giving them episode names. I'm not kidding. So
Oh, okay.
the more
Well,
you come out, yeah, and hoping to introduce you to some people that I think you would find very
Ah,
interesting.
wonderful, wonderful.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Great.
and anyone who's listening out there who has information that you think Michael might be interested in, please do contact him
Yes.
because it's the right thing to do, and he will absolutely respect anonymity.
Sure.
And we need to push this ball forward somehow, one way or another. So thank you, Michael. It's amazing.
Great.
Always amazing to talk to you. I want to give a shout out to all of you guys who listened to us tonight for joining us and hearing Michael's amazing information. You're the go-to guy when it comes to this subject. It's absolutely incredible. I want to thank all the people who not only listened, but joined in the donations for Super Chat. So thank you, Namaste, and Judy, you guys, it really helps us a lot to fund this show. So thank you, Star Orchid and Dana Matthews. You guys have been incredibly generous tonight. Thank you, Bob Thorson. Really appreciate it. Samuel Fogelgren, you guys are amazing. Joseph A, truly appreciate your generosity. Sunny, Lunar Dove, you guys are just absolutely wonderful. So
Love you back.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael,
Okay.
you're going to stay with us for a second or two after we hang up.
No problem.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight on this fine Monday. Are we September 1st yet? I mean, October
Almost.
1st?
Almost.
We're almost there. Okay. I've lost a couple of days, had an interesting life for the last 2 weeks. We are coming live to you from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana. We are coming to you from the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Roku, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Please check out our shows. Please check out our prior shows, especially the ones with Michael. That would give you a lot more information than you got tonight. Look for him, and do contact him with any information you might have. And with that being said, thank you all and good night. We love you. Namaste.